Thank you very much, Eminencies, Excellencies. I want to start with a word of gratitude to the Academy, to President Archer and to Bishop Sanchez Sorondo for hosting us. It is a place where we do feel connected as people, and we want to thank you for giving us that opportunity today. I also want to recognize Professor Jeffrey Sachs. It was with him in August, just before the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, when in the Alps of Austria, we had a conversation on the importance to bring faith as a source of moral direction and encouragement in the discussion on humanitarian action. His Royal Highness and myself have been very honored to co-chair this high-level panel. One of our colleagues, Danny, is here with us. 9 of us were charged with the task to identify ways to raise more funding, make it more predictable, and secure better use of money for the people that are left furthest behind. Those who, for no fault of their own, see their lives and their livelihoods destroyed by conflicts and natural disasters. It is a world of ours that has become richer, and yet one where those who are devastated by wars and by force of nature are growing in numbers. Even for us as a panel, and we have been working on this, it was a shock to realize that while people living in extreme poverty, luckily, in numbers are going down and down, those that are facing humanitarian emergencies are going up and up. Since the beginning of the millennium, they have almost quadrupled. Today, if people in need for humanitarian aid were a country with a population of 125 million, this would be the 11th largest country in the world, just between Japan and Mexico. And life in this country is life in fear. Children in this country, in their vast majority, especially if they are girls, do not go to school. Adults have no jobs. They rely on our kindness to survive. And it is a moral duty for us to recognize that the world has changed dramatically, whereas our action is falling also dramatically behind. The conclusions we drew are written down in a very readable report. This is the report. I always say it is a report not just with numbers, it is a report with a heart. And these conclusions we will present very briefly with my co-chair. Start with the following. No more humanitarian emergencies are what they used to be. Local events that are short-lived. Help comes in, does the right thing, helps people, and then leaves. Today, humanitarian emergencies are a global phenomenon. They affect not only a large number of people, but their repercussions are felt way beyond the borders of affected areas. And we don't need to look any further than Europe to understand that message, that trouble travels. They are also much more protracted, meaning that it is not good enough to bring food and shelter to people. We also need to bring hope and schools and jobs. And because a number like 125 million becomes so big that it is abstract, I want to talk about one of this 125 million. It's a girl, her name is Aisha. Now she's almost 16. I met her about 3 years ago in Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. She was working the fields to help her handicapped mother. And I asked Aisha how she felt about the Syrian war that sent them fleeing to Lebanon. She said, it was terrible, but the most terrible is that I cannot go to school anymore. And I wanted to say to her, Aisha, I hope you will go back to school. But I knew that I would be lying to her, that most likely she would marry early, most likely she would not see school. And then I went back. Here is my colleague, Kristalina. He took this from me as humanitarian commissioner. And we made a pledge that we would build not just humanitarian assistance, but also schools for children. And now 200,000 Syrian children go to school because we realize that the war is not going away anytime soon. Our second conclusion is very sad, and it is that we do not see prospects as a panel, and we are a panel of optimists, but we do not see prospects for this trend to be stopped or reversed anytime soon because of the dual hammer of violent extremism that has been unfortunately on the increase and climate change. The IPCC predicts that by 2025, displaced populations because of climate change, climate refugees would be 100 million people, and 2025 is just around the corner. So this is the bad news. Well, there is a third conclusion of our panel, that there is good news. And the good news is that we can identify the financial needs and we can mobilize in our rich world enough money to provide help and hope to people whose lives are destroyed. We assessed the shortcoming to be today $15 billion. We actually also concluded that never before has the world been so generous to people in need. In year 2000, we spent $2 billion. Last year, we spent $25 billion. But also never before has our generosity been so insufficient. And that shortage of $15 billion is a difference between life and death. And it is the difference between hope and hopelessness. I will tell you a little story. I was talking to young people, and I asked them to close their eyes and imagine that they are among those 125 million, to imagine life. And then I asked them, how did you feel? And universally they said, hopeless. So that 15 billion we need also because if we have millions of people with no hope, we are generating not only tragedies for them, but instability for the rest of the world. And that instability, I don't think is worth economizing on $15 billion. So then we ask ourselves, how can we come up with the gap to be filled? And we came up with 3 conclusions. I will talk about 2 of them, and my co-chair will talk about the most important one, how we get the money. Our conclusions are, first, the best way to deal with humanitarian emergencies, as we all know, is not to have them in the first place. That there has to be a much more forceful concentration on conflict prevention, conflict resolution, disaster risk reduction. And that time has come for official development assistance to concentrate, to focus much more forcefully where it matters the most in situations of fragility. We concluded that no more the development world and the humanitarian world have the luxury to be a world apart. That in these protracted crisis situations, There has to be unity of purpose. And that help needs to follow the people in need, not the countries. So if Jordan has 1 million refugees, and in Lebanon they are 30% of the population, while they are middle-income countries nationally, they should be eligible for grants and soft loans to follow the people in need and help them survive. And of course, a very critical conclusion is that for the humanitarian community, mentally to move away from emergency assistance to providing future to people, to providing schooling for the kids and jobs for the adults. And I know that Earthrin has been doing quite a lot on that, help people to help themselves. We also concluded that we are hopelessly behind as funders and as implementers to cope with this changed world of ours, that we need to reform. And I am particularly proud to speak about it here in the Vatican, where we started the day today talking to some of the senior external people you have invited to help you to reform. If an institution that is 2,000 years old recognizes that change is a necessity, if the Vatican is embracing change, we sure can do it in the humanitarian community as well. And we need it so we can earn the trust to our citizens to have that 15 billion that are currently missing. So we are proposing what for the shortage of a better word became known as the grand bargain. For the funders to simplify and harmonize what they want as reports and engagement, to direct more money to long-term predictable programs, to reduce earmarking, to say to you, I'm looking at the Federation, the President of the Federation of the Red Cross, you know how to spend the money, we trust you. And also to be more mindful that most of the help is given by local people and local organizations, and yet most of the funding today, 99.8% of the funding goes through international organizations. How to empower local organizations is absolutely critical. And then we want to see the implementers to harmonize their cost structures so we can collectively strive for efficiency, to work together, to go beyond what we today believe is a competitive inefficiency world, have assessments that are jointly adopted, and division of labor, collaborative spirit, so we can do more with resources we have. One of our colleagues used a very good image of what needs to happen. He said, humanitarian aid is like gold. It is so precious because it is about saving lives. Nothing can be more precious than that. But our gold today is ranging from very low carat gold, 9 karat gold, to 24 karat gold. We have on $1 only 40 cents making it to the end beneficiary. This is the 9 karat gold. And we have 95 cents on the dollar making it to the end beneficiary. And I always quote a Russian ambassador who said, so you take $1 and you end up with a ruble. And that we have to improve. We have to collectively make our gold, if not 24 karat, at least 18 carats, so we can make a real difference. And if we do that, we believe we can raise more money. And now His Royal Highness would answer the most important question: how? Your Royal Highness.